Hello and welcome to the Rested podcast, where we explore travel time rather than destinations and the joys and surprises of shared transport. My name's Mark Selby. I love the theatre of travel, discovering the stories of journeys and learning how people use their travel time. John Norden's book, An Intended Guide for English Travellers, was published 400 years ago. Norden was a surveyor and cartographer. The book was a breakthrough in atlases, as it included the distances between towns in each county. He also produced road distance tables between towns in England and Wales. Now, unless we're walking or cycling, we think little of the distances presented on our sat-navs and mobile apps today. Distances are calibrated, though the units of measurement might extend beyond simple miles and kilometres. A Swedish mile is the equivalent of 6.2 miles in the rest of the world, or 10 kilometres. The old Danish mile was just over 7.5 kilometres, or the equivalent of 4 minutes of latitude. To the list of unusual units of measure, I'd like to add the Kiwi Kilometre. This isn't an official unit, nor can I find details of its origins, let alone scale. It's just a strange measure that appears surprisingly often on signage beside roads and trails in New Zealand. Whatever distance mentioned to a charging point, a cafe, or scenic viewpoint seems randomly generated by a mistaken signwriter or someone with a wicked sense of humour. When the Kiwi Kilometre is raised with locals, the response is often a shrug of the shoulders or a knowing chuckle. Years ago, in Ireland, I realised that it's not just the accuracy of distance, but also the order in which directions are presented. Driving on a country road with a poor map and no sat-nav, I asked someone for directions to a farmhouse. "That's easy," he replied. "Carry straight on this road, and about half a mile before you get to the Red Lion pub, turn right. Go down that road, and you'll get to the farmhouse." Thanking him, I set off to make a U-turn at the Red Lion and then turn left after half a mile. John Norden's maps included descriptions of the landscape and archaeological sites based on his own observations. And as Yogi Berra once said, you can observe a lot by watching. A pioneer in observing people and their behaviour in urban settings was William Whyte. In the 1970s, Whyte and his researchers would stand on the streets of New York with discreetly held cameras, recording how people move, congregate, and interact. As the research expanded, cameras on buildings made time-lapsed recordings of behaviour. Whyte walked the city streets for more than 16 years and regarded them as the rivers of life, where we come together. He remains wonderfully quotable. Examples include, "What attracts people most, it would appear, is other people, and it's difficult to design a space that will not attract people. What's remarkable is how often this has been accomplished." On this last point, one of Whyte's many findings was that lively, enjoyable public spaces start with inviting places to sit, and specifically movable chairs. These offer the option to sit in groups, pairs, or alone, chairs that can be moved to follow the sun or shade. Deserted public spaces become flexible and hospitable if freestanding seats and tables are introduced. Places are transformed. So simple, but as Whyte said, the human backside is a dimension architects seem to have forgotten. Like John Norden before him, Whyte was a man of many talents. Before his urban observations, Whyte worked as a journalist at Fortune magazine. There he coined the term groupthink for rationalized conformity and wrote the bestseller The Organization Man. Now, we don't need to be polymaths or experts in multiple fields ourselves to appreciate what's around us. Travel with someone else. I'm enjoying Alexandra Horowitz's book On Looking, A Walker's Guide to the Art of Observation. In it, the author takes a series of city walks with different companions. They include a 19-month-old son who takes her around the block in New York, a geologist, an illustrator, and a wildlife specialist. Her walk with a blind woman is very interesting. Arlene Gordon completely lost her sight in her 40s, after years of deteriorating vision and unsuccessful operations. The loss of one sense often leads to other heightened sensory abilities. On the walk, Arlene uses her long fiberglass cane with a ball at its tip, tapping the ground ahead of her. Quite apart from informing her of surfaces, gradients, or hazards, the sound of the cane's tap on the ground bounces around the environment, enabling Arlene to determine the space all around and above her. Her heightened sense of hearing also tells her so much about other pedestrians, especially when they're talking on their phones. Their gender, size, ethnicity, age, and fitness, as well as their emotions, happiness, sadness, uncertainty, and concern. Arlene feels changes in wind flows as they pass gaps in buildings or approach street corners, and smells the different aromas of vegetation, restaurants, and shops. All of these create a map of reference points and of the rivers of life. Another way to see more of our surroundings on travels is to take a guide, not the guided tours resembling bad history lessons with a soon-forgotten jumble of dates, lords, ladies, and bloodshed, but rather the tours that connect to our interests and passions. A friend and former Nokia colleague, Nigel, is now a licensed tour guide, providing bespoke tours to clients. They include themed tours focusing on royalty, film locations, Downton Abbey, Harry Potter, and music. He says the military history tours can be very poignant, as people see where relatives were based, where they departed from, and in some cases, where they're now buried, or their actions are commemorated. I asked Nigel what challenges these tours present. The first was the unrealistic expectations of people, such as wanting a tour of the Cotswolds in England in 30 minutes. J.D. Vance recently visited this popular area, which is approximately 800 square miles in size. 30 minutes is pushing it. Another challenge is organising a focused tour on a busy summer weekend in London when multiple events are underway. Once, he was escorting a multi-generational family from New York whose interest was royalty. It was the day of the Trooping of the Colour. This is when the official birthday of the sovereign is marked by a military parade and march past. Nigel and the family's transport were seriously held up in congested traffic. The vehicle was then surrounded by 300 naked people on their bicycles, taking part in the annual Naked Bike Ride. Older New York family members thought it horrendous. The younger members thought it hilarious. Nigel had forewarned them all of the risk, but the scheduled timings shouldn't have conflated royal and nude parades. Nigel and I worked at Nokia when the popular N95 phone was launched in 2007. The device, amongst many other features, provided owners with maps and GPS positioning, often for the first time. After a while, Nokia conducted research with active users on their travel patterns. Many took the same route to and from work or their place of study year after year, by bus or by car. Their devices confirmed they only took another route during the week, if there were serious roadworks or a diversion. But when asked to describe the area 100 metres on either side of the roads they drove or were driven down each day, most struggled. Other than the front of buildings we pass regularly, many of us don't know what's located behind them. The parks, museums, galleries, theatres, shops or restaurants, let alone the history of the area and the character of the community within it. As Sherlock Holmes said, the world is full of obvious things which nobody by any chance observes. Isn't it strange that we can know so much more about a remote place or community than we do about the people and places around us? There's so much to discover. My thanks to the many listeners that have been in touch. Special mentions to Kat, Steve and Rue starting an adventure on Vancouver Island, to Thomas and friends taking the sun trip excursion from Kalmar, to Ingrid on her morning walk in Sydney, and to Jana in Finland. Thank you all for your news and feedback. Enjoy your travels, whatever their distance. Thanks for listening to the Rested podcast. Please subscribe for details of new episodes and tell your friends. I look forward to reading and sharing your travel stories. Please email restedpodcast@gmail.com. And my thanks to everyone that has contributed to Rested so far. Enjoy your travel time.